let's quickly talk about this Floyd Mayweather fight, if you guys didn't see it on Monday morning. Floyd Mayweather, for apparently $3 million a round or something. I think it turned out to be somewhere in the ballpark of $64,000 a second. $9 million apparently is what he made for the whole thing. I mean, that's not been confirmed, but that's the public figure anyway. I don't know if that was a drop or not, but it was something, right? Here's the point. Let me start with this on one level where I was totally wrong. I'm so used to Mayweather scams that anytime he was going to be booked in an exhibition bout, I'm just going to be like, oh my God, I thought it would be the worst. You've seen exhibition bouts taking place before in Japan, like Fedor and Musashi had one, where they just kind of throw each other around in the kurtka, which is the gi that they wear in Sambo. And, there's some high-amplitude throws, but they're not really going after it. And there's been many other ones as well. These are not uncommon. I thought it'd be something like that, which is basically less than sparring. Boy, it turned out to be much more than that. So, mea culpa, I was totally wrong in that one regard, but very wrong. However, here's what I thought was kind of funny about it. If you didn't see it, here's the basic gist of it. A 50-0 professional boxer, albeit far past his prime, waltzes into the ring, marches down a man who looked to be significantly smaller than him. They said only 10 pounds on the broadcast, but it looked to be 20 or maybe more. And the guy who was the professional boxer just had his way with the guy who was not the professional boxer. It was ugly, super ugly. Tenshin's punches could do nothing to Floyd. Couldn't back him up, couldn't whip his head. He landed one, I think, good counter shot that landed, but I had a little sting behind it. But ultimately, dude, Floyd, when he fights people who aren't boxers, apparently has no problem opening up on offense. What a revelation this is. Now, he was shelling up early against McGregor and then eventually just, went to town on him. Imagine that 10th round where Mayweather went to town on Conor. That was like the first instant of the Tenshin fight. He just waltzed this little diminutive man down, and it was so jarring. It knocks him down 3 times in the first round, and his corner saves him, and Tenshin starts crying, and it's this like totally humiliating moment for Rizin. Now, there's been a lot of theories that have been put out in the media afterwards. One of them was that that this was good for Tenshin. Look, I don't know Japanese culture certainly well enough to make a broad sweeping claim that I know for a fact that it is not, but it's hard for me to understand how a guy you're not going to get a rematch against, that being Floyd, coming in there and absolutely dominating and humiliating your top star is good for you. It's not to say that even, for example, McGregor losing was good for McGregor's star power and just being associated with a bout that big, but that bout was much bigger than this bout. That bout went 10 freaking rounds. There was a huge buildup to it. There wasn't any of that for this. So, I mean, how much rub is he really going to get from it? Some, I'm sure, but it wasn't like he lost after making it competitive or something. He just got absolutely thrashed. So, again, perhaps there's a way that they can make this work, and to a degree, it could have even been intentional. But to me, it seems like the most likely outcome is there might be some benefit to the celebrity in going up against a Floyd Mayweather. But generally speaking, it's not good to get absolutely demolished by somebody like this in the way in which he was, so thoroughly, so rapidly, and then that guy bounces out of town, takes a check, and never comes back. That's typically not good for your generational talent who you're trying to say to the world is a guy to pay attention to. And by the way, if you pay attention to Tenshin's kickboxing exploits, they are very good. As a kickboxer, he is credentialed. As a kickboxer, he is quite adept. It's just boxing against Floyd. Floyd ate all of his punches and marched him down. I just don't know, what are you supposed to do about that?
You fail.
So people have told me that, and I've seen this on social media, well, it was fake. Now, again, do I know for certain that it was not fake? I do not. Would it surprise me in the end if someone was really able to show with somehow conclusive evidence that this was fake? Would I be surprised? I would not necessarily be surprised. However, that's really not my theory going into this. I've seen some Zapruder films that folks have put together about look at, what the tape shows. I find all of these to not be very convincing, either because the angle at which they're showing it is ineffective, the speed at which they're showing is ineffective, and these are generally sort of some have been better than others, but some of the worst ones I've seen have been very amateurish. And look, here's the point. They've just not been very convincing to me. As I mentioned before, it's like, why would you set up? You would want to set up your guy if he's going to lose because there's some kind of rebound effect in it all. And Floyd's never going to take a bout where he doesn't win, so that's kind of a given. Wouldn't you want him to put up a bit of a fight before that? I mean, this not to get absolutely humiliated. So, and also, like, a guy who's 0-0 in professional boxing, I believe, if I'm not mistaken about that, who's totally outsized, going up against one of the top, 50 boxers of all time, maybe more than that, who's much bigger than him. What way did we think it was going to go? I just didn't even think they were going to really fight. I thought they were going to just kind of move around, touch, bell rings, and then do that for 2 more rounds. And no, Floyd went in there and just stomped on him, basically. So I was wrong about that. But if you'd asked me how's it going to go when they fight, maybe I would have thought it had gone a little bit longer than this. But in the end, was anybody going to pick Tenshin to win? It's just that when Floyd fights people he knows that can't box, he just marches in on them. That's the takeaway here. And folks have been like, oh, this makes McGregor look better. Well, certainly McGregor's much bigger. Perhaps as a boxing talent is more formidable. Certainly the power differential, I think, is enough to matter. And Floyd on such a big stage with McGregor, exercising caution early the way he did, was probably a prudent move. I don't think it says one thing about McGregor that we didn't already know. McGregor's bigger, probably hits a lot harder, and there was more to lose for Floyd in that contest than this one. In that contest, there was the record in boxing. There was the legacy. With this one, there's none of that. There's just literally, and it's also, he was going to make $300 million for that one. He made $9 million for this one. They're just not even comparable in that regard. So I don't think it makes McGregor look any better or any worse. It stays about the same for me. It's just, here's the thing about MMA. MMA, more than other sports communities, are prone to accepting conspiracy theories is really the big lesson here. And partly I'll defend that. Look, in MMA, it blurs the line sometimes with pro wrestling. In Japan, the two go hand in hand, right? That is sort of what it's known as. The Kakatogi boom was both of those things, the blowing up of pro wrestling, the blowing up of MMA, and how those two blur the lines there so constant, right? Kazushi Sakuraba was a big deal. Why? Because he was sort of like, imagine if Hulk Hogan was actually a good fighter in MMA. That's kind of what that was like to a degree, right? So I can understand why you want to take a side eye at it. I can understand why you'd be a little bit skeptical. And again, I don't know what the truth is. I have no idea if Tenshin Nasukawa took a dive or whatever. I'm just saying the most logical answer here is probably that's not the case, but I can't say for certain. So the fact that we deal with these murky waters makes that kind of thing a little bit more defensible. I'll say that. I think that's okay. I also just think, though, that the weirdness of MMA and the weirdness of combat sports attracts a certain audience that's also a little weird and naturally more receptive to these kinds of things. There would be talk of someone taking a dive in any sporting community who observed this. If you showed this to all basketball fans or all NASCAR fans, they'd probably also be like, really? If you explain to the context to them, be sure we didn't take a dive? It's a natural question. But they'd probably move on from it. The intensity with which this perspective has lingered over social media and then on the sports, the websites low these many days, kind of indicates that we're a little bit more trapped in this than normal, in part because we naturally curry this kind of response, but also because these kinds of people are attracted to it and then make up the sport in a more direct way. Dan from Oregon is a perfect example of that. That's exactly what we're talking about here. So did you think that it was fixed, Cobb?
No, I didn't think it was fixed. I just thought it was a guy who was really underweight facing a 50-0 boxer. That's what I thought it was.
Dude, here's the thing. I was all this time saying to myself, I don't want to see Floyd fight kickboxers or MMA fighters. I completely changed my mind. It's the only way to get Floyd to fight an exciting fight.
Yeah, apparently.
Have him fight an MMA fighter or a kickboxer. Dude, Floyd will march people down. It's the only way to get him entertaining. Now, the fights are stupid.
Zero fear. That's why.
Dude, he had absolutely no regard for Tenshin Nasukawa. None whatsoever.
That's what made me laugh, too, because it's like, I remember I might have had to go hunt down the audio of us talking about what we thought would be the more difficult fight. A person like Tenshin Nasukawa, who has this great kickboxing background and has great hands, or Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's probably heavier than Floyd and will probably just keep coming forward at him despite not really doing much damage.
Mean in boxing?
Yeah.
Yeah, the size differential now makes that debate pretty clear.
Yeah, pretty moot. I was the one on the Khabib side. I'm like, dude,
Were you?
trust me. Yeah, I was like, I would definitely rather take a person who thinks they can box Floyd Mayweather, who's going to be way underweight and way undersized, than a Dagestani who's going to keep coming forward at me.
Well,
I think I'll take the guy. I'll take Tenshin all day.
The size, I think, is a pretty clear thing. Here's the point about this, and this is my point. I mean, in the Japanese media, I don't know how they're receiving it, but here in the English-speaking media, it's like, oh, everyone thinks Tenshin sucks now. Dude, he does not suck. He's actually really good, and I didn't realize how much bigger Floyd was. That would completely change the debate for me now, because Floyd was so much bigger than him, it just made no difference. But if you took somebody who was, let's say, Conor or Khabib's size with Tenshin's skill set, that is pretty formidable. I just didn't realize Floyd would be like, Thor from Game of Thrones going in there, and whose skull did he crush? Do we remember that episode?
Oberyn.
Yeah.
Prince Oberyn.
It was nothing, like the buzzing of flies to him. So that was the thing that got me. I'll be honest. Did you see that coming? Because I didn't see that coming.
I didn't know it was gonna be that bad, but I saw a pretty dominant victory. But I mean, it's just these things you can't hold it against a guy. It's just a fish out of water thing. It's gonna happen every time.
You know what? Floyd should fight MMA fighters and kickboxers from now on because the fights are entertaining. If nothing else. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel. There's other videos you can watch right here. If you've never heard my SiriusXM radio show, there's a link in the description box below. You can try it for free for 30 days. The Luke Thomas Show airs weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fight Nation, Channel 93. Catch y'all next time.